Hi, welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about thriving. What does that even mean? What does that mean to you? On Google, it says it's to grow vigorously, to prosper, and to flourish. But how about specific to your circumstances, to your values, to your beliefs, to your dreams? What does that mean? We're going to dive into it a little bit today through the lens of organizational, developmental, and positive psychology. They would say that thriving is like an optimal human functioning, and that there's multiple dimensions to thriving, like physical, social, cognitive, and emotional. So here, because we are all about thinking management and emotional management, we're just going to focus on the cognitive emotional domains of thriving. And this episode is to answer the question of why should we care? My life is fine. Research since the 2000s have showed that people who thrive have a higher quality of life. They have better workplace performance. They have lower burnout. And that's what I want for myself. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for all of us in this soul tribe. I want us to live our best life and to face the constant challenges that are always going to come at us, the pain that life is going to always offer, with as much purpose and fulfillment as possible, so that the great times are great and the terrible times are full of peace too. I know it's kind of a broad concept, like how do we know if someone's thriving? And the field has broken it down. There's different psychometric properties, meaning different measurements of categories and ease and disease states, well-being states that you can measure. One of them is all about mindsets. Mindsets are just inner states that underlie behavioral change, but they're just beliefs, basically. So we'll give you some examples, and we're going to be practicing a lot of these together in this space, and hopefully you'll practice on your own too. Self-awareness is like the core tenet, not just behind thriving, but behind coaching. And I know we talked a lot about that in the first episode about being aware and deconstructing our beliefs. And self-awareness sort of made it onto the scene in the literature in the early 70s. And it's just like it sounds. It's the extent to which we direct our consciousness or awareness to focus on ourself. And it's, again, like the whole foundation of what we're going to be focusing on. Some people will call it metacognition. Other people describe it as thinking about your thinking. Some people call it consciousness. And it's all describing the same thing, that awareness of your internal existence. So when you put that in a professional context, there's still a lot of research to support that self-awareness is amazing. Coupled with goal settings, it makes you perform at your highest level. So we can't ever talk about self-awareness and coaching, at least I can't, without mentioning Viktor Frankl. I just think he is a true hero and such an incredible teacher for us. He was an Austrian neurologist, a psychiatrist, a philosopher, a writer, and a Holocaust survivor. And he has one of the most beautiful quotes that still sits with me and I think on and I share with all of my students and anybody I talk to coaching about. And he says that between stimulus and response, there is space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. So what he's observing is that we have the opportunity to recognize our own capacity to determine our own behaviors, no matter the environment we find ourselves in. And that is such a beautiful gift that no one can take away from us unless we allow them to by our beliefs, which is why self-awareness is such a great gift. Of course, our human nature is to react to events and to circumstances. And the backbone of coaching really is to help people choose a more adaptive response or behavior in a way that best serves them. I do want to take a side note on self-awareness or mindfulness because I think that there is a common misperception, and I used to hold it too, that mindfulness is you sitting somewhere meditating for hours or whatever, even 10 minutes. And while I do think that there is a very big benefit, even if it's 2 minutes of shutting your brain off, there is also just the practice of being mindful, which has nothing to do with meditation, but is just a way of being. So when I first sort of started learning about this, I remember the exercise of go up the stairs and feel how it feels to have your foot strike the step and your glutes contract. And when you're brushing your teeth, feel how it feels for your tooth to pass the gum line. And I used to not even understand, what the heck am I doing this? This is meaningless. This is not adding to my life at all. And the more I started understanding about mindfulness, the more I started understanding that it is just a way of being. For example, one of the most common things that comes up in my sessions is work-life balance. And so many parents say that when they get home, they're still thinking about the day and their headspace is with work and they're checking emails and they're thinking about what happened to, their patient or their colleague, and they can't be present with their kids. And somehow they want to turn it off and on at certain times in the day. And so we've all experienced having those moments where those thoughts are disrupting our experience and it's disconnecting us from being present with our kids or with whatever situation you might find yourself in. And I think that, we think that meditation is you have to go away from your loved ones or whatever the thing that is you're doing and just go practice this one thing. But honestly, you can practice it in all situations. Like I mentioned, just brushing your teeth, feeling the bristles going against your gum line and your tongue and your teeth. That's practicing mindfulness when all of these thoughts are coming into your mind. Like, what am I going to cook for dinner? What do I need to plan for tomorrow? What happened to this patient? It's the same thing. It's just you don't have any shame and judgment around it because it's not with your kids. It's brushing your teeth, but it's the same thing. Your brain is chatting at you a million miles an hour. And when you wake up in the middle of the night or you're thinking about a deadline that's due. You're in the shower. You're not even focused. You can't even remember what body part you washed because you're planning about tomorrow. You're thinking about yesterday. All of those moments are perfect moments for mindfulness and for self-awareness. It seems so simple. It doesn't even seem like it's connected at all to being present with your loved ones. And I definitely remember feeling this way. This is the most stupid exercise. I can't believe I'm doing this. I would rather be thinking about planning for dinner or rather be ruminating on what happened in my day today than feeling what body part I'm washing. But then I started to realize it's just like any other muscle in practice. It's easier to turn it off and on when you are with your loved ones, when you have practice turning it off and on, when you're doing the dishes, when you're brushing your teeth, etc. So you just become somebody who's always self-aware, no matter what setting you're in. No matter if you're doing the dishes, you're self-aware. No matter if you're with your loved ones, you're self-aware. It's just a mindset in which you embody and you inhabit and you live in all the time. And so I would really encourage all of us, and I have to continue to challenge myself with this too when my mind wants to wander. Of course, I'm not saying that we shouldn't plan for the future. I'm not saying we shouldn't have time for self-reflection. All of those things are beautiful and important and deserve their own time and space, not when we're multitasking and trying to do other things. It's hard to find the time, and it's incredible if you can find little bits of time, how much you can process at once, and then you are freed up to have a distraction-free experience with your loved ones or walking the dog or doing the dishes or brushing your teeth because you've already sort of processed everything that's happening. It feels counterintuitive to set more time to be self-reflective or plan. But if you do that and it's taken care of, then every time those thoughts come to bombard you in the middle of something that you want to be present with, then it's so much easier to block them, to dismiss them, to let them roll past you and stay connected and just be someone who is connected no matter what they're doing. You just happen to be with your kids, you're connected. You happen to be with your patients, you're connected. You happen to be with the dishes, you're connected to yourself. So I'm off the mindset bandwagon on meditation. I just felt like that was important because it comes up a lot. And I think there's so much buzzword about being mindful and mindfulness and meditation. And it almost seems like it's its own abstract thing that takes time and is a burden, when really what I want to expose you to is that you can just practice it all the time, and that is being mindful. You don't have to go out and meditate for hours. That's it. Okay, so let's go on to another mindset, which is self-efficacy. So that's also been described for many decades now, since the early 90s, and it refers to your belief about your capability to achieve your goals. You can imagine that people with a lot of self-efficacy have a lot more persistence, and so they reach their goals. And part of this, going back to the meaning making, is no matter the evidence in front of them, they just believe they can do it. They're not making the failure mean that they can never do it, that they're not good enough, that they're not capable of X, Y, and Z. And so their stories of self are more related to their self-efficacy than to stories of circumstance and making that mean something that might not be otherwise the case. That's really going back to self-limiting beliefs. A self-limiting belief is when a circumstance exists, like in the 50-year history of this company, there has never been someone hired in this position who has my background. That's a fact. But when we make it a self-limiting belief, then we then interpret it to mean that it means I'm not capable, they're never going to hire me, I'm not even going to try. And that's adding additional narratives and stories that then it's not just the circumstance that becomes an obstacle, it's ourself and our belief in what we're capable of, our belief in our possibilities that also limits how we show up, how we go after our goals, how we plan, how we take risks or not. And that just adds another layer. But that part is the part where we get to regain our power and choice around with self-awareness. It's understanding and being aware that those stories even exist. And so it really is asking ourselves, is this circumstance really factual? And how much is this is just a belief that somewhere along the way I chose to believe, I inherited. We're sentient beings. We have to make meaning of the world around us so that we can navigate it in a way that keeps us safe, in a way that propels us. But sometimes those stories help us establish our identity and protect our identity, and it's a wonderful thing. And sometimes it's a limiting thing. And sometimes as simple as just questioning the stories of self, questioning the stories of your circumstance and what's happening can do so much to open us up and open up space to deconstruct those beliefs. Sometimes that's it. It's just a matter of our beliefs, of our capability, what we can do to achieve our goals, no matter the circumstance, no matter what we're making it mean. So that's going to be something that we will continue to practice on this journey together. Somewhat related to self-efficacy is the last mindset that I want to touch on, and that's having an internal locus of control. A locus of control is like the extent to which people believe that what happens in life is determined by their own action versus externally by other people's actions. So again, you can imagine that people with a very strong internal locus of control are really motivated to set out their goals and to set out to achieve their goals than people who are less so or have a more external locus of control. And I'm not saying you can force everything to change just by brute force and push and, hard determination. And I'm also not saying that the world is your fault because you didn't try hard enough or you didn't take on enough responsibility. Absolutely not. I'm just saying that there is a layer to play with and to explore with love and curiosity and fascination that, yes, there are lots of ways in which this world is fixed. It's set, and I get it. And we don't have a lot of control in a lot of things. But there can be even the tiniest bit of control in how we do something. I might not be able to control that I have to do this thing, but I can control the way that I do it. And I can do that in a way that makes me feel good, that makes me feel in line with who I am, with my values, that honors myself, my loved ones, and that gives me already a little bit of peace back and a little bit of power back without having to chase the external fixed circumstance. Oh, I lied. There's one more mindset to touch upon, which is a growth mindset. And that's the extent to which we desire to learn and grow. And people with more growth mindset perceive ability like it's something malleable and fluid rather than fixed. And so the more growth mindset you have, the more motivated you are to work towards your goals and overcome your obstacles. So those are the various mindsets that we're going to be using and leaning upon for the rest of our time together. And we're going to shift gears from mindsets to behaviors. Behaviors are just actions. They're actions, what we're doing as an individual to either engage ourselves or to inspire others, to influence others. and hopefully to make lasting change. So to make lasting change, we want to engage in behaviors that are going to help us express our authenticity, to be generous, to connect with others, and to give us our most fulfilled life. So behaviors don't just sort of come out of thin air. They're motivated by our emotions. So when we talk about emotional thriving, it's going to be behaviors that enhance our emotional stability and our well-being emotionally. Emotional thriving has also been researched in the literature going back to the 2000s. And these are people who have lower levels of anxiety and rumination and depression. They have higher calm and more positive self-perception, greater levels of happiness, optimism, and life satisfaction. They're better motivated at work and seem to have more resilience. They can mitigate workplace stress. So the two main behaviors that we're going to be carrying throughout all of what we do are going to be self-compassion and emotional regulation. Self-compassion is just like what it sounds. It's how compassionate are we towards ourselves? How do we treat ourselves with kindness and empathy? And I have noticed this common theme amongst so many people, so many of my students, that it seems like somewhere along the way we picked up the messaging that if we're nice to ourselves, that we won't work as hard and we're going to let ourselves slack off and that we won't push and that we won't excel. And I cannot tell you how much the opposite is true. And I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in my students. There is so actually much literature also to support that the more accepting we are of ourselves, the more life satisfaction we have, the more resilience we have, the more risk we take on. And I just want to give you an example of this with two contrasting examples because it sounds so lovely. And if it was so easy, why wouldn't we be doing this, right? But this is just such a deeply ingrained belief. This is one of those automatic beliefs that we picked up without even realizing it. And I hear this from so many people all the time. It's just such a deeply ingrained belief that if we're soft on ourselves, we're not going to push ourselves somehow to be better. And so when this comes up, we just kind of explore with curiosity, like what's the situation? What are all the thoughts? And, what it is like when we're coming from self-judgment and self-deprivation and self-criticism. And there's this kind of undertone of punishment often that leads to a person I didn't do that well. I got to try harder. I'm not as good as somebody else, right? There's so much self-criticism, self-judgment, and it leads to that person shutting down, ruminating on what's happening, comparing themselves to others, feeling really guarded, feeling kind of stuck in a lot of inaction because they don't feel internally supported enough. And even when they do take action, it's so full of continued self-judgment that they don't even enjoy the process. They don't enjoy the learning. They don't enjoy the achievement. It's not a productive thing. When they get it, it's not even because they got it. It's because they were lucky. It's because some other thing outside of them happened. And so it's they can't even have self-appreciation about it. And so the next time when that situation comes up, they're still so full of anxiety because they never even achieved it. They just got lucky last time. So they're still, again, so full of anxiety and guarded that they can't, it's either one of two things happen. They can't receive external guidance because they're so stuck in their head, or they're outsourcing all of their knowing to somebody else, trusting everybody else. And so, then they punish themselves for not having trusted themselves. It's just so painful to walk through their whole experience. And so we walk through that whole experience, and then we play with the emotion of self-support, to love ourselves, to be kind to ourselves all the way through. And it's really amazing to see how different they show up when it's coming from a place of love. Immediately, if they're coming from a place of curiosity, I wonder if I can do this. They're open to creativity, to collaboration, to fluidity. They might not even get the outcome, right? But they're learning from it in such a more enjoyable way that they actually look forward to the next time that they can do it. Because okay, I didn't get it that time, but look how far I did get. Look what I can do. I do believe in myself. And they walk away feeling proud and feeling open and feeling I can't wait to go back and try this again. They're just more open to taking on risks because they loved themselves through it and they believe themselves through it. And it's just such a beautiful, supportive way to get to there that it doesn't even become about achieving the goal. It becomes about who you become in the process, who you build yourself up to be in the process. And I have never seen self-compassion let somebody off the hook. I have seen the complete opposite. I have seen self-compassion open up people to take on the biggest fears and make the biggest strides because they have so much internal support. Even when the external support isn't there, even when they know people around them are like looking at them, they're judging them. If they can do it with internal support, nothing can stop them. And it's just such a beautiful thing. So I'm off the rampage about self-compassion. It is a superpower, and we're going to work a lot on that through our time together. The other emotional behavior that I want to bring up is just emotional regulation. And it's just like what it sounds. It's regulating our emotions to remain calm and collected because that helps us be better equipped to excel when there are challenges. And of course, there always will be. So yeah, now to switch gears a little bit, we're going to stay in behaviors, but there's a couple of cognitive behaviors that I think are worth mentioning. And one is cognitive agility. That's basically how we adapt and shift our thought processes when it's beneficial to us, to making plans. And it's really beautiful in allowing for flexibility and being productive and for our mental well-being. And if you can combine all of these together, cognitive agility with self-awareness and real time, be aware of what your thoughts are, how that's impacting you, realize it's not getting you closer to your goal, in real time, flex and strategize and change and be open with love to a different version of self, a different response, an intentional response. Man, you are cooking with sauce. Is that the expression they say? You're doing it right. Oh my gosh, how much self-reflection and self-awareness. How beautiful to use it in real time to achieve your goals, focus your activity in a way that's meaningful, that brings you satisfaction, whether you're at work or in your personal life. It's not about just sitting here and thinking about my thoughts all day and having all this time for self-reflection. No, it's real, living, breathing with us as we go throughout the day. It's being in the middle of something and having a heated discussion with somebody and seeing that you're reacting because you're self-aware, seeing that it's not serving you to how you want to react to the situation, taking a breath, and then with intention, giving us intentional, purposeful thoughts that do help us present our case with more efficiency, with more flexibility, if that's who you want to be. And if you want to be somebody who yells because you just want to yell and I don't care, I like to yell, this is how I want to respond, then that's fine too. But you're yelling with intention because you want to yell, not because someone is making you yell. Does that make sense? Even though the outcome is still the same, there's just so much more power and drive when it's from an internal source. Okay, so all of this sounds easy. It's been researched for decades and decades. How come we just don't do this all the time? Why aren't we taught this in school? How come, we're not just born this way? And I just want to give a nod to our beautiful brain who had to evolve over millions of years. Of course, our brainstem is our primal survival state. It keeps us safe. And everything that we're talking about really is in our prefrontal lobe. It's in our executive brain, and that's the most optimal place for problem solving and for learning, to access our dreams, our highest version of self. It's where we want to go to have our most intentional, beautiful life. Great. And we have our limbic system, which is mid-level functioning, and it's where our emotions and memories are carried. And it processes 80 to 100 times faster than our prefrontal cortex. So our primal or mid-level brain operates on the motivational triad, which is basically to seek pleasure, to avoid pain, and to conserve energy. So back in the day, for example, if we were rejected from our tribe, and we were banished to be alone, we could actually literally die, right? So if you're separated from everybody, that fear is a great emotion. It keeps you safe. It's just an instinct. It's natural to help us socially, physically be safe. And so it's constantly on the lookout for danger, for threats, and it wants to avoid all of that. It just loves you. It wants to keep you safe. And today, we still have that same primal reaction when we're getting up on stage, giving a presentation, and you like literally feel outside of the group because everyone's looking at you and it feels like you're taking on a risk. You're being different than everybody else. And it's completely natural that we're wired, that this is a negative thing and it's a threat because it's unfamiliar. And our brain just wants us to be comfortable. So I used to like get so mad at my brain, like, brain, aren't you smarter than this? Like, this is not helpful to me right now. Like, I just need you to support me. I need to do this thing. I need to take a little bit of a risk. I need to be honest with this person. I need to change whatever thing. I need to do scary things in life so that I don't stay stuck in a pattern or dynamic that's not serving me. And, I need to break some of these things. And the more and more I just understood that like the anger at my brain wasn't helping me either, and just had some compassion for my brain, like, poor brain, it just loves me. So let me give it a break. It's okay. You don't know any better. You just need to keep me alive. And I love you so much for trying to keep me safe. Thank you for keeping me safe. I'm here now. I got you. We're going to do this together. We're going to take the fear together. I know better. And we're still going to take this on, even with the fear. And that is where the self-awareness comes in. That is where the emotional regulation comes in. That is where the self-compassion comes in. And all of those mindsets and behaviors that we talked about from our amazing, beautiful prefrontal cortex to give a little bit of grace to our poor, like, little midbrain who's just trying to keep us safe. Same with pleasure. Like back in the day, pleasure meant eating and procreating so we could survive. And today it's like food is everywhere. Netflix is everywhere. Social media is everywhere. Concentrated foods. And of course, instant gratification feels amazing. And scrolling doesn't always serve us when we have stuff to do. Preserving energy, back in the day, like you couldn't frivolously spend your energy. You had to like plan for your next meal and how you were going to survive. So like just playing chess for fun wasn't really, a great expenditure of energy. And so same with learning new things. It's like literally a physical neural connection pathway that takes energy. And that's why we do so much on autopilot. We have so many automatic responses and automatic thinking. So we don't have to burn up energy. There's a whole system in place just to like keep things on repeat and autopilot so things are familiar. And so, like treating each other, our beliefs about each other, getting to our jobs, our skills just become on autopilot. The average person thinks on average, we think about 60,000 thoughts a day. And 75% of those thoughts are the exact same as the day before. This goes back to conserving energy and being on automatic autopilot. And so all of this is like theoretical and fun, interesting facts. And it's kind of like, we're talking in the clouds. Like, what does this really mean for my life? And how are we going to be spending our time together, like unpacking all of this? And so I want to return back to this automatic thinking and these 60,000 thoughts, and 75% of them are the same every single day. We don't even question it. And I used to think for the longest time that my thoughts were just real. They were the no matter truth, like the truth. Like just as much as the sky is blue and the grass is green, this person is mean, or I'm not capable of X, Y, or Z, or I'm great at A, B, and C. And I never even used to question it. I would just have the same automatic thoughts every day. And that's how life was, without ever challenging it, without ever having a little bit of fun with it, or to understand that our brain is just processing information all the time. And that's the truth. And I just want to challenge like our thoughts a little bit, because our brain is just meant to think thoughts. That's all it does all day long, think thoughts, as we've said a couple times now. Just like our heart is made to beat without you asking it, and our lungs gas exchange without you asking it, your brain thinks and processes information without us even asking it. And so it's constantly processing so much information all the time to make life manageable. It's taking your focus and concentrating it on whatever you're asking it to concentrate So like maybe right now you're in the car, you're in the shower, doing the dishes, whatever you're doing, and you're focused on the visual field right in front of you. And how many even of you notice the bridge of your nose or the rim of your glasses until I mention it? Because your brain, even though it's there, it's filtering out information to make you as efficient as possible, right? Goes back to the efficiency piece. And so you focus that spotlight of attention wherever you want it to be. But that means that obviously, like just because it's not there, that it doesn't exist. Just because your brain didn't offer it to you, that it doesn't exist. Like now you're aware of it in this moment. And I like to even think of like people, for example, with color blindness. They might see the world with completely different colors than what I see the colors to be. The shade, the grass is green might be some kind of shade of gray to them. So what's actually the truth? My brain is telling me one thing, their brain is telling me their brain is telling them something else. It's just such an interesting concept, I think, to like challenge that our brain and our thoughts are the absolute truth. Same with like so many rays, like ultraviolet rays, gamma rays, all this spectrum of color that we can see right now. And there's layers and layers and spectrums of all these other color waves and frequencies that we can't even hear or see, but 100% exist. But because our brain isn't acknowledging them, they just don't exist in our narrative. They just don't exist in our world. And we sort of just accept the thoughts that our brain offers us as ground truth. And so we don't even think to challenge them. And this goes back to the whole self-awareness piece, thinking about our thinking. It's so interesting. There was this interesting study in the 2000s by MIT where participants were asked to solve a puzzle, and the puzzle solving part of the brain lights up, and then the speech center lights up for 8 seconds. And then the participant gives an answer. So for 8 seconds, your brain is literally talking to you. Like one part of your brain is just talking to the other part of your brain. It's just a biologic function. It just thinks so many thoughts in one day and presents them to you. And we accept them one after another. And that becomes our life. That summary or culmination of observations becomes deeply ingrained as our belief systems that are unconscious until we get in that power seat to debate with it, to change it, to refuse it, to reframe it, to redirect it, to challenge it with all the thoughts. Like you do this all the time. Like you sit down to write an email and all of a sudden your brain is like, oh my God, you have to call your mom. Or like, oh my gosh, my friend is mad at me. And we tell our brain, stop it. Not now. I have to focus on this email. I have to finish this task. I'm going to deal with that later. That's literally you redirecting your brain. You're constraining it. You're not accepting it as truth, but you are observing it and you're redirecting it. So we do this all the time out of convenience or necessity. And so what we're talking about with coaching and using these mindsets and behaviors is doing it with intention and purpose and power to redirect our thoughts and our brain in the way that we want to go. I love thinking about the famous Descartes quotes, I think, therefore I am. I think like in the original context, it was created, at least in my interpretation, to make us distinct from other animals and mammals, that we have a higher order of thinking and a higher order of consciousness. So therefore we're different. But it also kind of implies the way that it goes, I think, therefore I am, that we are our thoughts, and like whatever our thoughts are equals us. But I think it's kind of cool to flip it around. And I didn't make this up. Somebody else I saw do this, and I have been thinking about it and playing with it. Instead of saying, I think, therefore I am, saying, I am, therefore I think. Meaning like, I am in my oneness and my beingness, I just am. And I think, and my thoughts come and go. My thoughts might come from my beingness, and I might not. I get to think sort of separately as a byproduct of my beingness, and not that I am my thoughts. I don't know, just something fun to play around with those words. And, there's been so many cool functional MRI studies that show us just how dynamic the brain is, that it's not fixed, and that we can start to disrupt these belief systems and these response stimulus connections every time we practice self-awareness. We are practicing an intentional response to a stimulus, and that connection gets stronger every time we practice it. And our brain is always going to look for evidence to make that connection stronger. So if you have a belief system that says you're a bad mom, then your brain is going to constantly be looking for evidence to support that you're a bad mom. And if you're not aware that that's happening, you're just going to continue to consume and repeat that belief and act in ways that support it and only find evidence to support it without ever challenging evidence to the contrary. That's our confirmation bias. That's been well studied. And so literally we can rewire those neural pathways that regulate our emotions and our thoughts and our reactions and make new neural pathways that help us live a life on purpose and intentionally to support who we are, what we came to do, and reprogram our brain's automatic response. It just takes, again, going back to that self-awareness effort. It's not easy, and it comes in 3 stages. If you're new to the practice, the easiest stage is after it happens. You have a stimulus and you made a response and it was automatic, like a knee-jerk reaction. And then afterwards you're like, oh, I see how I responded. And that seems like annoying that it happened after the fact. But even that noticing it after will start to disrupt that pathway. And then the more you practice it, it'll happen in the middle of that response. You're getting annoyed and you're reacting automatically, and then you realize it and you're able to break it in the middle of it. And then the more and more you practice it, it'll be before you even react that way. You'll be able to preemptively and intentionally react the way that you want to react. So it's an ongoing practice, and we're just not taught any of this, which makes it challenging and fun. And we know that our brain, of course, doesn't like to expend energy on new things, and that's why it's also hard to do. But we do have that neuroplasticity, that ability to change. And I do want to say and mention, this isn't about toxic positivity. This isn't about always being happy. This isn't always about changing every response so that it's a great one and it feels good. That's not at all what this is about. Life is hard. Life is going to offer us so many challenges and pain and suffering. And there's no way to change that other than how do we want to react and respond to that. It goes back to being a sentient being who makes meaning out of what happened and uses those experiences to help us make our life more, meaningful and help us process what is happening. There's a really neat study by Dan Siegel showing this power of integration that our brain does. And he studied people who grew up with disordered parenting attachments. And when they were adults, he followed them into adulthood. And when they were adults, they had really difficult narratives about their life. And when they had kids, they also had disordered attachments. But there was a group of people within there who, as adults, they took time to make sense out of their experience. They gave themselves inner security and inner peace, and they took something meaningful away out of that pain. And those adults were ones that went on to also have kids and gave their kids a healthy and secure attachment, even though they never learned it for themselves. So it's not about not having a hard time and not having pain. We are, of course, going to have hard times and pain, but it's about what are we making it mean? How can we use this pain or injustice or whatever it is to make this world a better place, to make our life a better place? And it's not to excuse behavior. It's not to stop fighting for change. It's not to stop changing the world, but it's to support ourselves so that we can change the world, so that we can make change in a way that has so much love for ourselves and others, that it's sustainable, that we can continue the fight, that we can impact the world in even a bigger way. And I know this probably sounds really woo-woo to some people. There are people who are really skeptical, and that's a beautiful thing. I love it. Please, you're invited to this space too. Diversity of thought enriches all of our experiences. It pushes us all to grow and learn new things, different ways to explain ourselves. There's a solid 8% of people out there who believes that life is just fixed. Their brain is fixed, their happiness is fixed, or unhappiness is fixed without their say in the matter. That's a solid chunk of the population. And there's a solid 92% that believe that everything that we're advocating and exploring today, that we do have some choice in the matter. And I invite all of us to explore part of that 92%. Whether you walk away with it or not, I invite all of your experiences. Every experience is valid. Each of us have our own truth. And I think with that, I'm going to start a new closing tradition and leave you with a few questions. So here's some questions for you to think about in your time. What do you believe about your life? Why do you believe it? Where along the way did you choose to believe it? Did somebody give it to you? Did you pick it up from something? Did you inherit it? Can you choose to believe it again? Not as luck, but as an active choice? Or do you want to redecide? And since you're doing this on your own, there's another great technique out there called the 5 whys, but you ask yourself a question and you follow it with 5 whys. And I can give you an example. So if I ask the first question of what do you believe about your life, I might answer something like, it's exciting, it's going through some transition, right? As we open up SoulSHINE. And I can ask myself the first why. Why is it exciting? Why is it transitioning? And I might respond something like, well, I'm trying to figure out strategies for how to create, how to put this out there. And then I can ask the second why. Why are you trying to figure it out? And I might respond something like, well, I've never done this before. And I'm learning and I'm scared. And now my third why is, why are you scared? And then it might bring up a lot of beliefs about being scared to be seen, being scared to be heard, being scared that people will judge me, being scared that it's too soft in like an academic or scientific field. And then I can ask why again. And then I can dive into my beliefs that having something soft isn't as valued by people. It's not as legitimate. And then I can ask why again. And do you see how it took to the third why to start really digging into the good stuff, to the really deeply ingrained beliefs that are potentially holding me back or slowing me down from creating with love and excitement and openness? And I started to tap into the beliefs around the fear and the self-limiting beliefs I picked up, that soft science is somehow less valuable, or the fear to be judged. And so that's where the richness is of the 5 whys. It takes a couple layers of peeling back the onion to go down there. So take any of the questions you want, take all of them, none of them. I encourage you to follow it up with the 5 whys, and I am wishing you all play, possibility, and peace. I'm wishing you to feel supported in this space, and I am so honored to be a part of your soul tribe. Sending love, and see you next week.